3 spine-chilling true stories of terrifying encounters alone at night, secrets exposed. Laura shivered as she pulled her jacket tighter against the cold midnight air. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. Every rustle seemed like a whisper of secrets, every shadow a lurking figure. She glanced back at her house, where her kids lay asleep, blissfully unaware of the threats outside. Was it just her imagination, or did the streetlights flicker as she left, casting odd shapes like skeletal fingers? She shook her head, dismissing the fear. The diner awaited her open 24 hours, familiar and safe, but as she stepped inside, a familiar clinking of silverware and sizzling griddle sounds felt heavy, like an unwelcome weight pressing down on her chest. Patrons laughed in their booths, and she forced a smile, but an unsettling tension crackled in the air. It was a typical night until her phone buzzed in her pocket. An unknown number. Strange. At first, she opened it hesitantly, thinking maybe it was just a wrong number. "Do you know what Mr. Jenkins is really up to?" it read, the word sending a cold shiver down her spine. Mr. Jenkins. Her neighbor, the sweet old man who fed stray cats and helped at the food bank. Surely, it must be a prank. She dismissed it as paranoia, fatigue from long hours at the diner creeping into her mind. But the messages kept coming, each more sinister than the last. Kids aren't safe, secrets hidden in plain sight. Fear washed over her like ice water. What did they mean? Her eyes darted to the window, spotting Mr. Jenkins standing too close to the diner, his gaze unsettlingly fixed on her. His benign smile twisted into something shadowy under the fluorescent lights. The tales whispered around town about unsolved disappearances surged in her mind, memories of laughter turning to hushed tones. Those kids. What if they hadn't just run away? She shook her head again, trying to clear the fog of dread that enveloped her, then came the flicker. The lights dimmed before cutting off entirely. Panic surged, enveloping her. Darkness swept through the diner, broken only by the buzzing of the emergency generator, throwing lame shadows across the walls. She fumbled for her phone, her heart racing. What if it was her kids? Alone? With that man? With urgency, she pushed through the door, thoughts of her children filling her mind. The street outside felt like a ghost town as she sprinted home. Each step pounded heavy in her chest, the night air thick with an oppressive weight. Suddenly, the pale glow from her living room window caught her eye alight. Something wasn't right. Was someone inside? Her breath caught in her throat. She crept to the door, heart thumping, adrenaline surging. As she pushed it open, fear gripped her. Papers were scattered across the floor, the TV flickered with static, and she heard a faint voice from the shadows. Familiar yet ghostly. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The voice echoed in her mind like a chilling melody, twisting around the fear already suffocating her. She hesitated, grasping the doorframe, her knuckles going white. Was this Mr. Jenkins' doing? Thoughts raced through her mind, a chilling question lingering. What kind of monster hides behind a friendly face? With her heart pounding, she stepped inside, ready to confront the unseen terror. Yet with each pulse of fear, she realized, danger lurked not just in Mr. Jenkins, but perhaps right there in her own home, masked by the facade of trust. What dark truths would she have to unearth to save her children from a community that might not be what it seems? Laura's heart raced as she stepped deeper into the dimly lit living room. The sound of the static-filled TV pulsed like a beating heart, sending waves of dread coursing through her. The shadows danced at the edges of her vision, and every creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. "Mommy?" A soft voice called out, barely a whisper, yet it cracked the silence. The familiar sound sent her into a state of panic. Where were her children? Ellie. Jacob. She shouted, her voice trembling, desperation spilling into her plea. As if in response, the static intensified, buzzing like angry bees circling around her. She turned, her eyes darting around the room, trying to locate the source of the voice. It was coming from the kitchen. Each step felt heavy, like she was wading through thick fog. Mommy! Help! The cry was edged with fear, and it propelled her forward. She rushed into the kitchen, the air colder, a bitter chill rolling off the tiled floor. There, in the far corner, stood Ellie wide-eyed and pale, her small hands gripping the counter. But it was Jacob's absence that wrapped a cold hand around Laura's heart. "Where's your brother?" she gasped, crouching down to Ellie's level. "I don't know." Ellie whimpered. "He was here, and then I heard noises, and he told me to hide." Laura pushed back the dread that clawed at her throat. "What noises? What's happening?" Ellie pointed nervously to the back door, its glass panes rattling as if something pressed against it. An icy wind crept into the room, carrying a scent that turned her stomach. Something unclean was outside. "Mommy, it's him," Ellie said, her voice barely audible. "Mr. Jenkins is out there. Stay here," Laura commanded, clenching her jaw as she moved towards the door. The faint sound of scratching came next, a slow dragging that set her nerves on fire. "Please. Don't go," Ellie cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. Laura could barely look back at her daughter. She had to protect them. She had to find Jacob. With trembling hands, she grasped the doorknob, her skin prickling with an awful sense of foreboding. Did she dare open it? Did she want to see what lay beyond? "Mommy!" The urgency in Ellie's voice propelled her forward. She twisted the knob and yanked the door open. The night embraced her with a frigid grip. "Jacob!" she shouted into the void, her voice cracking. The yard was devoid of life except for the shadows spilling from the trees. But her gaze landed on a dark figure, hunched over on the ground. Heart in her throat, Laura rushed toward it. "Jacob!" She stumbled as the figure turned, and dread tightened around her chest like a vice. It was no longer Mr. Jenkins, it was a monstrous version of him, darker, more twisted, the very essence of decay and malice. "Can't you see, dear Laura?" he crooned, voice dripping with mockery. "Your children, they're just the beginning. Get away from him." As she lunged forward, she felt something pull at her ankle, drawing her back. Panic surged as she glanced down. Ellie stood clutching at her leg, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, don't." "Why? What did you see?" Ellie shivered, unable to speak, only shaking her head. The figure of Mr. Jenkins reached out a hand, grotesque and skeletal, the moonlight ghosting over his fingers. "Join us, Laura, or lose them forever." The world felt like it was collapsing around her. She was caught in a maelstrom of terror and uncertainty, teetering on the edge between salvation and damnation. Then, a faint voice called again from within the house. "Mommy, help me!" It was Jacob. With dread pooling in her stomach, she tore her gaze from the monster and felt the weight of the house pulling her back. What horrifying choice lay ahead? As she hesitated, Mr. Jenkins' smile deepened into something far more sinister. The dark truth crept closer, threatening to engulf her. Could she gather the courage to save her family before it was too late? The question hung in the air, sinister and heavy, as the shadows seemed to shift and swirl around them, ready to consume everything. "Help me!" Jacob's voice echoed like a soft bell from the darkness, tugging at Laura's heart. The night air prickled against her skin as she stood torn between the monstrous figure and the faint call of her son. "Jacob!" she called out, her voice a lifeline woven from desperation. It felt impossibly thin, like it could snap at any moment, lost to the encroaching shadows. "Mommy, you must choose," Mr. Jenkins hissed, his lips curling back to reveal jagged teeth, glinting with an eerie light that cut through the dark. "They can't stay here with you. They belong to me now." "No!" Laura screamed, the word ripping from her throat like a primal instinct. "You can't have them." She shook off Ellie's trembling grip and took a step back towards the house. The silhouette of her daughter, trapped in wide-eyed horror, implored her to reconsider, but the haunting promise of Jacob's voice pulled her like a magnet, drawn by unseen forces. "Mommy, please. Just come back." Ellie cried, her voice cracking, each note weighted with terror. Time felt fluid, stretching and pulling. With every passing second, the darkness thickened, the very air suffocating her. Rushing to the doorframe, Laura squinted into the shadows inside the house, desperately searching for Jacob. "Jacob!" She shouted again, desperation morphing into raw panic. What if he was trapped? What if he was already gone? As though in answer, the front door creaked open wide, revealing the shadows within her home. The static of the TV buzzed louder, a symphony of madness. She took a cautious step back in, leaving Ellie trembling in the doorway. Then an awful chill ran down her spine as she heard it again. "Mommy!" The voice came from above, soft and pleading, echoing down the dim hallway. She turned just in time to see the shadows twist and shift, as if they had a life of their own. The air thickened with a palpable sense of dread that coiled around her throat. Ellie called after her, "Mommy! Don't leave! It wants you!" Ignoring her daughter, Laura sprinted down the hallway, heart pounding in her chest. The walls seemed to pulsate with her frantic heartbeat, echoing the silent dread growing in her mind. Turning the corner, she felt a sharp cold sweep over her, and she stopped dead. A door at the end of the hall creaked open slightly, its hinges squealing like a wounded animal. Beyond it was a black void, darker than the abyss itself, and at the threshold stood Jacob, pale and quaking, his small frame barely visible against the backdrop of night. "Jacob!" she cried, extending her trembling arms toward him. He didn't move. "Mommy, help!" He raised a shaky hand, pointing into the darkness behind him. "He's here. He won't let me go." The pit of Laura's stomach twisted as the air thickened around her, an oppressive weight pressing against her. An horrid realization gripped her. Mr. Jenkins was more than just a monster, he was a hunter, and they were the prey. "Run!" Laura screamed, but the word felt hollow, lost among the shadows. Before she could reach her son, a chilling laugh rang out, echoing from the depths of the void. "You're all mine, Laura." The darkness shifted. The wall seemed to pulse, shaping itself around poor Jacob, pulling him back toward the nothingness. "Mommy!" His scream pierced through the suffocating fear. In that moment, Laura felt the full weight of despair crushing down. She was losing her child, losing the fight. As she stumbled back, the strings of fate began to tighten around her, tightening the noose of inevitability. The laughter faded and transformed into a low, guttural growl. The walls around her shook. Would she have the strength to face whatever awaited beyond that door? She felt it closing, the distance between her and Jacob stretching impossibly wide. And then it all went black. What had become of her children? What had led them into this nightmare? The air grew heavy with silence, as if the world was holding its breath. But one thing was certain, she would have to confront truth itself in the chilling depths of that darkness. What lay in the shadows awaited her return. A silence enveloped Laura, thick like fog, wrapping around her senses. She tried to call out, but her voice was gone, swallowed by the darkness that hung like an omen in the air. It was suffocating. Every breath felt like an intrusion. Then, an unmistakable sound reached her, the faint whimper of Jacob. It came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the hollowness that surrounded her. "Mommy!" Each plea was more broken, more desperate, and it sent a jolt through her. "Jacob!" she forced out, though it felt weak against the vastness of the void. An intense dread crawled into her gut. Laura's limbs felt heavy, her heart racing out of control. With every pulse, the darkness vibrated around her, like a restless beast. She staggered forward, her fingers brushing along the walls, slick with a dampness that felt alive. Her thoughts clashed. The darkness whispered lies that painted horrors in her mind. What if Jacob was lost forever? What if she was too late? She had to find him. Keep calling, Jacob. She urged, panic clawing at her throat. I'm coming. The shadows twisted and curled, creating faces in their depths, sneering at her resolve. A chilling laughter rippled through, shaking the walls, spiraling her deeper into despair. Suddenly, a flicker of light pierced the gloom, illuminating a familiar horror, a bloodied handprint smeared across the wall, dripping crimson. The sight made her stomach churn. It felt wrong. This was a place no child should ever experience. Jacob! She cried out again, threading hope through her terror. Then, a memory surged through her mind, a story Jacob once told her about the Keeper of the Night, a creature that feasted on children's fears. It was a game to him then, a mere tale. Now, it felt all too real. A low growl, deep and monstrous, resonated from the depths of the void. Laura froze. A firm chill washed over her as she felt the edges of her reality fading. Was this creature the very shadow they had once joked about? Was Mr. Jenkins the keeper? Her heart sank. This was no longer a friendly tale but a nightmare aching to claim her. Mommy! Jacob's voice came again, fragile and distant. She pushed forward, heart racing, guided only by a mother's instinct and the hope that he was still there, somewhere in the depths. Each step sent tremors of terror through her. Time warped, stretching into an eternity, as shadows clawed at her heels, whispering secrets and bidding her to turn back. Go away! She screamed at the shadows, anger swirling with fear. You want to take him. But laughter wrapped around her, mocking and dark, echoing louder than her pleas. The walls of the house began to ripple, distorting as if the structure itself was alive, breathing with menace. Mommy! Jacob's voice cracked from just beyond. Jacob! She shouted, rushing toward the sound. I'm here. I'm coming. But with each desperate plea, the shadows surged forward, receding and laughing, pulling her further from her son. She stumbled, lost in the echoing darkness, a void that seemed to stretch into infinity. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her wrist. Cold and clammy, it sent shockwaves through her body. It took all her strength to steady herself and pull away, the grip tightening for just a second, leaving a mark of ice behind. Then she saw him. Jacob stood just ahead, tears glistening in his eyes, his face pale and frightened as he reached for her. But behind him, the darkness writhed, wriggling with malice. Mommy! He said again, and this time it was almost a whisper, filled with the kind of terror that could shatter the bravest heart. As Laura's hand stretched out to grasp her son, the oppressive darkness thickened again, forming a barrier, twisting between them, growing stronger as it consumed the light. I want to let you take him. She yelled, feeling rage swirl deep in her core. The growl returned, low and ominous, and something in the shadows began to take shape, a figure looming large, hungry and ancient. It turned its gaze toward her, eyes smoldering like embers. What price would she pay to save Jacob? Would she confront that which dwelled in the dark? Or lose everything to the Keeper of the Night? Mommy! Help! Jacob's fear ignited her resolve. In that moment, she knew there was no option but to face it head-on. Whatever waited in the shadows, she would stand and fight. But could love outlast the darkness? The shadow approached, and Laura felt her heart soar with a desperate conviction. She took a deep breath, absorbing the dread around her, ready to step into the abyss. What would happen when she did? Laura's heart thundered in her chest as the shadowed figure drew closer. She felt the air grow cold and thick, wrapping around her like chains. Jacob's frightened eyes locked onto hers, pulling her toward him as if her love were the only lifeline in this abyss of despair. Mommy! His plea cut through her like a knife, igniting a primal instinct buried deep within. She wouldn't let him suffer, she couldn't. With every ounce of strength, she pushed against the cloying darkness. The shadows snarled, clawed at her limbs, but she fought through their grip. She was a mother. She would not back down. "Jacob, don't be afraid. I'm here," she shouted, panic igniting her urgency. But as the phrase escaped her lips, the figure before her transformed, taking on grotesque shapes forming from the swirling shadows. Twisted faces smirked at her, mocking her resolve. The growl reverberated through the air again, shaking her to her core. This was it, the Keeper of the Night, an ancient terror brought to life. It was hungry, and it wouldn't stop until it had devoured every shred of her hope. "Come to mommy." Laura reached out, desperation merging with determination as her fingers strained toward her son, stretching against the anguish surrounding them. The figure lunged, a whirlwind of darkness and stitched together nightmares, and Laura's blood ran cold. In a frantic moment of instinct, she shouted, "You want him? You'll have to go through me." She pushed her fear aside, feeling something fierce unleash within her. The ground shook beneath her feet, and the laughing shadows fell momentarily silent, as if taken aback by her defiance. Jacob blinked, surprise flooding his fearful face. Out of the darkness, a voice rasped, deep and sinister, "Your love is a candle in the night. But can it withstand the wind? Jacob, stay back." She shielded her son, bracing herself against whatever horror might come for him next. Suddenly, the walls around them shuddered, reflecting Laura's turmoil. Blood-stained handprints appeared, pulling back in time with the thrumming of her heart. Each pulse echoed the scream of a child, a cry long forgotten, swallowed by the dust of ages. "Mommy." Jacob clutched her leg, his small frame shaking. She felt the warmth of his body, steadying her like a beacon. "You won't take him. You can't." She cried out, her voice raw, the shadows convulsed, spiraling around her and Jacob. Then, the figure surged forward, its nightmarish silhouette breaking free from the dark. It bore down on them, a mass of teeth and eyes, its growl transforming into a hideous laughter that buried deep in her soul. "Love!" it bellowed, a voice that crackled like thunder. "Love is a weakness." With breath held and heart racing, Laura gathered every shard of courage. "No. Love is our strength." She felt a warm pulse radiating from Jacob, her heart entwined with his. Whatever the Keeper thought, love was a force that could break through the darkest night. The laughter faded, replaced by a haunting silence that shook the very foundation of reality around them. For a moment, everything felt still, then, shadows curled back, revealing a chilling truth. The walls started to close in, the ground beneath rippling like water. "You think this is strength?" the figure mocked. "You will pay the price for your love." Terror shot through her as the realization struck. The house was collapsing, the shadows closing in, not just to take Jacob, but to consume everything, including her. "Jacob! We need to go. Now!" Laura grabbed his hand, pulling him close as adrenaline coursed through her veins. But at that moment, the laughter returned, a cacophony of echoes, and the shadows began to blur her vision. Light flickered, then died, as they were plunged into a deeper void, one that threatened to swallow them whole. Laura felt the ground beneath her shift, breaking. "No! Not my son!" As the darkness advanced, swallowing the last flicker of light, Laura could feel the Keeper's grip tightening, the void closing in as reality eroded away. "Jacob, hold on to me." But as she clutched him tight, the shadows surged, a black wave that seemed to extinguish her last shred of hope. The darkness engulfed them completely, and Laura screamed, what sacrifice would she have to make for their escape? Would they ever truly escape the clutches of the Keeper of the Night? Laura's scream echoed in the void. It sliced through the darkness like a knife, but the Keeper only laughed. The sound pulsated, bouncing off the unseen walls like a taunt, a reminder of her helplessness. "Mommy! I'm scared." Jacob's voice pierced through the thick gloom, reminding her that they weren't alone in this abyss. The shadows wrapped around his small body, curling like serpents. Laura tightened her grip, willing the warmth of his small hand to ground her in this chaotic nightmare. In the unsettling silence that followed, a sliver of light flickered at the edges of her vision, shimmering like a lost memory. It was faint, but it was something. She took a deep breath, pulling Jacob closer. "Stay with me, baby. We're going to find a way out." The laughter morphed, swirling like mist. "You think you can escape?" it taunted, echoing hauntingly through the depths. "We will escape." Laura shouted back, her voice clear and defiant, but inside, the tremors of uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Suddenly, the weight of the darkness pressed down around them. Laura felt the air change, crackling with static energy. Jacob shivered against her, his body quaking in fear. Without warning, the shadows lunged, aiming straight for Jacob. Panic surged through her as she dropped to one knee, shielding him with her body. "Get away! Don't touch him!" she screamed, feeling the icy tendrils wrap around her waist, clawing at her skin. Images flashed in her mind: her son's laughter, sunsets in the park, bedtime stories, moments filled with joy, and now they were threatened by an ancient malevolence. Love surged, fueling her anger. "Stop!" she bellowed, her voice cutting through the darkness. And just like that, the shadows hesitated. They recoiled as if struck. "Your defiance amuses me," the keeper hissed. "But it is futile. No, you are wrong. This love is a fire, and you will not extinguish it." Laura felt the warmth radiating from her heart, intensifying with each beat, manifesting into a light that began to push the shadows back. The ground shook, and the walls around them shimmered, disorienting her for a moment. "Look, Jacob! The light!" In an instant, the shadowy figure writhed, weighty darkness unraveling around its form. The keeper faltered for the first time, its monstrous face distorting in rage and confusion. "Fight it, Mommy!" Jacob cried, his eyes wide and hopeful, mirroring the flicker of light that sparked within Laura. With each breath she took, the light grew, pushing back the shadows, illuminating the grotesque forms writhing in discomfort. She felt a surge of determination, an unstoppable force flowing through her veins. But just as hope ignited, a sinister whisper crept through the air. "I will claim what is mine. You cannot protect him forever." The shadows coiled tighter. Laura's heart raced, realizing the keeper was not merely a creature of darkness, but a hunter dependent on fear. Fear was its sustenance. "Jacob, focus on the light," she urged, locking eyes with her son. They had to believe they could overcome. Together. The darkness screeched as they purpled and swirled backward. Laura concentrated, her love merging with her resolve. Energy pulsed, a fragile flame against the dread. "We'll fight this together." But just as she felt she might have a chance, the walls began to ripple again, more violently this time. The light faltered, a crack appeared in the ground as the shadows lunged again, baring teeth, more aggressive, more hungry than before. Laura's heartbeat quickened. "Jacob, hold on tight." They were being yanked apart, darkness yanking Jacob toward the abyss. "No! Not my son!" The last shred of her hope surged forth, and she felt a blinding brightness envelop them both. But terror loomed as the keeper's laughter erupted anew, reverberating around them like a barbaric symphony, drowning out her resolve. In a final desperate reach, she dove forward, reaching for Jacob as the light grew brighter, blinding her vision completely. Then silence. Had they escaped? Or had they fallen deeper into the abyss? As the light dimmed, a new feeling slithered into her heart, a chilling doubt. What if this was the end of their fight? What if it had only just begun? The darkness loomed, shifting in fateful anticipation. What awaited them on the other side of the light? When the blinding light finally receded, Laura's senses exploded with chaos. Cold, clammy air pricked at her skin, and the faint smell of decay snaked into her nostrils. Blinking against the dimness, she struggled to make sense of the world around her. "Jacob!" Her voice crackled in fear, her heart pounding hard enough to echo in her ears. The pervasive darkness lingered, wrapping around her like an unwanted shroud. "Mommy," came the tremulous reply, faint and distant. It cut through her like glass. Desperation clawed at her throat as she turned, searching through the shadows, but the void seemed endless. Each breath felt like a battle as the weight of despair pressed down on her. "Stay close," she called, each word a fragile thread she desperately spun into the web of their survival. The silence returned, thick and suffocating. Laura's mind raced, and a chill crept over her as fear danced along her spine. Where was Jacob? Panic clawed at her chest, each heartbeat a frantic reminder of time slipping away. "Jacob!" she shouted, moving deeper into the gloom, her hands outstretched, seeking any touch of him. Odd shapes emerged from the darkness, twists and turns of what could be sharp corners or grotesque figures hiding just beyond her vision, but then she saw something, the faintest glimmer reflecting off the floor. It was wet. Her stomach dropped. Jacob? There, just beyond reach, a thin trickle of something dark seeped through the cracks in the ground. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she tentatively approached. With each step, the shadows seemed to wriggle, whispering in voices that melded into a maddening hum of torment. "Stay away from that!" she shouted at the darkness as if it could understand. The shadows shifted as if feeding off her command, slithering closer with sinister intent. She could feel it, a malicious energy pulling her deeper, promising answers she didn't want to know. "Jacob!" A fresh wave of desperation surged through her as she spun around, almost losing her balance. The darkness pulsed, breathing, alive. And it was hungry. "Mommy!" His voice sliced through the chaos again. Closer this time. Somewhere in this thick night, her son was fighting to stay attached to her. Laura forced her way through the suffocating haze, feeling the tendrils reach for her ankles, trying to drag her down. She stomped her feet, invoking defiance in the void. "Stay back. You won't take him." The shadows hesitated, the air quaking with tension like a tightly drawn bowstring. But then came the laughter, the keeper's laughter, like nails on a chalkboard, sharp and mocking. "You think you can win?" It boomed, reverberating over her like thunder. "I am the night. I am shadows and echoes. Your love is a flicker, and you are so close to being snuffed out." "No!" Laura shouted back, anger blazing through her fear. "As long as I have Jacob, I'll fight. We will not be consumed by you." A burst of light flared where their resolve met the shadows, but it flickered, wavering. The keeper sensed their defiance. "You are more mine than you realize," it hissed, voice dripping with malice. "In time, all hearts can be twisted. Please. Give him back," she begged, fighting against the surging tide of despair. In the darkness, shapes began to coalesce, forms scrambling like infection crawling beneath the skin. Each twisted figure wore a familiar face. "Jacob!" Her heart screamed as she stumbled back, the illusions distorting in wretched mirth. "Mommy! Help!" The real Jacob's voice snapped her from the trance, grounding her just as shadows clawed at her sanity. She turned, racing toward his cry, heedless of the encroaching darkness. The ground trembled and split. The light flickered again, a burst of hope that threatened to extinguish at any moment. "Jacob!" she called, terror flooding her senses. "I'm coming." But even as she ran, time slowed. The darkness around her coiled and twisted, whispering promises and threats in her ears. Laura felt the keeper's presence press in, the air thickening with despair. Was she truly racing toward her son, or was it another trap? As she lunged forward, a chilling thought struck her. What if the darkness had its sights set not just on them, but on all love, all hope? And then she heard it. A sound, something scraping behind her, breaking the silence, a muted footstep, and it wasn't Jacob. Blade-like shadows loomed, swirling into shapes. "Abandon hope," they whispered, as the darkness surged forth to claim what it had long desired. Could she save Jacob before the keeper buried them both in eternal night? With the keeper's laughter dancing in her ears, Laura realized she was not just fighting for her son, she was fighting for her very soul. What would remain of them once the dust settled and the shadows swallowed their light? Laura's heart pounded like a drum in the relentless silence. She felt the shadows tightening their noose around her, the laughter still echoing in the cold air, a reminder that the darkness was alive. Each scrape of unseen feet sent shivers down her spine. She pushed past the primal urge to freeze, forcing her legs to propel her forward. "Jacob!" She called again, her voice echoing and breaking in the stillness. Fear drove her, raw and insatiable. Each breath tasted of ash and whispered regret. She fought against the crushing despair that urged her to stop, to surrender to the shadows wrapping around her like a lover's embrace. "Mommy, please." Jacob's voice was a haunting melody, fragile and distant. Every syllable twisted her guts. The keeper's laughter rolled around her, ripping the warmth of hope from her chest. "He's mine," it crooned, "you cannot protect him." The ground beneath her shifted again, splitting with a low rumble. She felt the air vibrate ominously. It felt alive, hungry. Was she running toward Jacob or deeper into a trap? "Mommy!" He cried once more, closer but also sounding weaker. Panic surged, driven by desperation. Laura sprinted toward the sound, a blind leap into the abyss. The shadows shifted, a cacophony of desperate whispers brushing against her skin, whispering doubts, vile promises of the keeper. "Give up. Let him go." "No." She gasped, fierce determination igniting a fire in her belly. "I want to let you take him." But the shadows thickened and surged, wrapping around her limbs, pulling her back. Cold touched her ankle, a rough frost biting her skin. Trembling, Laura pushed against it, every ounce of her will fighting the grip of despair. Suddenly, a figure coalesced from the dark, a glimmering silhouette, flickering like a faulty bulb. She reached out, half crazed with hope. "Jacob?" The name spilled from her lips, a prayer and a scream combined. The figure morphed, losing shape momentarily, laughter bubbling up from thin air. "You can't save him." Just as the illusion seemed to solidify, it twisted into the memory of faces she never wanted to see, neighbors, friends, other mothers. All pleading yet vacant. It was a distortion of what she held dear, an echo of something once loved. With each haunting image, she felt her memories bleed into the dark, blotting out clarity. She was losing herself, losing her grip on reality. "No, no," she shouted, shaking her head, fighting against the masters of the night. "You're not real. You're lying. Hold on to your hope." Came the keeper's mocking yell, its breath hot on her neck. "Hope is the real trap, isn't it?" Laura staggered back, gasping, the weight of those words anchoring her deeper in dread. She looked around frantically. Everything was shifting, bending, like a funhouse mirror, reflecting her pain and despair back at her. "Jacob!" She cried again, desperation raging like a wild animal inside her. "Where are you?" But the only response was silence, a heavy, thick silence, weighing down her heart. She fought against it, thrusting her hands out to the shadows, battling for control of the moment. If she faltered, everything would be lost. With each heartbeat, the darkness drew closer, slinking toward her with predatory grace. She could feel it the way it grew more aggressive, sensing her fear, savoring her bonds unraveling. Yet there, far in the darkest corner of her mind, a thought ignited. "Jacob!" And then, instantly, like a lightning strike, the shadow shifted, splitting open. A path illuminated before her, a flickering, ghostly light revealing something, someone. "Mommy!" Hope thrummed inside her, but was it real? Or was it another cruel trick of the keeper? As she barreled down the narrow, pulsing corridor, she could feel time unraveling like a ball of fraying yarn. With each stride, the whispers turned into screams, cascading through her thoughts, urging her to turn back, to succumb. But she pressed on. The overwhelming need to save Jacob was a tide against which she would not yield, but lurking just behind her, the shadow surged, a tangible darkness gathering strength, ready to pounce. Will love conquer shadows? Echoed a voice dampened by dread, and before she could comprehend, the ground beneath her feet began to shatter, carving the path of her fate. Would she find Jacob in time? Or was salvation slipping through her fingers like sand? The pulling force intensified, and she felt herself drawn toward the abyss of darkness, where the keeper awaited, ready to claim what had always belonged to it. Would they survive the night, or would they be lost to the echoes forever? The corridor twisted like a snake, bending light and shadows into a surreal dance. Each step Laura took felt heavier, laden with the weight of her despair. She could hear Jacob's calls echoing through the tunnel, but they grew more distant, more muted with each heartbeat. Her mind raced, time was slipping away, and with it, her son. "Mommy! Where are you?" His voice sounded so fragile, drowning in the dark sea of fear. She pressed her hands to her ears, trying to drown out the keeper's mocking laughter that reverberated in the corners of her mind. "Stop! Just stop!" She screamed against the encroaching shadows, with her cheeks wet from tears. She felt the ghostly light tugging at her as though guiding her. Was it an exit? Was it Jacob? Or was it another cruel illusion? The thought gripped her heart. She had no choice but to trust it. The light flickered more intensely, illuminating glimpses of memories she had buried deep. A birthday party, Jacob laughing with cake smeared on his cheeks, his tiny hands opening presents wrapped in bright paper. A dimming beacon, each flicker in the dark reflected moments she yearned to cling to, each flicker echoing a fate sealed in shadows. "Don't fight the flow." The keeper hissed through the air thickening with dread. "Let go of what you love, it'll only hurt more." Cold fingers of fear brushed against her spine, creeping closer, waiting for weakness. She gritted her teeth, reciting in her mind every reason she had to fight, to drive deeper. She would not lose him. Not now. Not ever. She pressed forward, heart racing, every bone screaming for her to escape. The shadows lashed like tendrils, grasping at her clothes and skin, leaving a trail of numbing cold. Another scream echoed from behind, louder this time. Was that Jacob? "Mommy! Yes. I'm here," she cried, but her voice drowned in the encroaching void. Instead, she sprinted through the undulating darkness toward that sound, the wailing chorus of grief and distance flooding her ears, but melting laughter slithered around her. "Do you think you can reach him? He's lost, just like you." The air crackled with static, thick and heavy. The icy grip of despair clung to her, making it harder to breathe. Each scream from Jacob began to sound like a warning, a plea filled with desperation that buried deeper into her soul. As she rounded a corner, the shadows fell away, leading her into a dome of light, weird and surreal. She stumbled into it, gasping as her eyes adjusted. In its center stood a figure cloaked in darkness, writhing as if pulled by unseen strings. "Jacob!" But as she shouted, the figure morphed, twisted into something grotesque, half his face distorted, sorrowful eyes glaring back at her. "Mommy!" It beckoned, the voice blending Jacob's with something ancient and chilling. The ground beneath the false Jacob trembled, cracks appearing with every shift of its form. Panic surged as the shadows writhed around her like angry serpents. They hissed, pulling her back, urging her to flee. "No! No more games!" Laura screamed, defiance surging through her veins. With one last thrust, she lunged toward the figure. With a scream of pure terror, she demanded, "Where is he?" The keeper loomed behind her, its breath rancid, brushing against her neck like a chilling breeze. "Find him, if you dare, but know this: the deeper you go, the more truth you will unearth. And some truths, Laura, are better left buried." A blinding flash filled the dome, drowning her senses, sending her careening back into the darkness. Time stretched as she was yanked through the fabric of reality, the air shimmering and pulling at her limbs. And before darkness completely enveloped her, she heard it again, a soft, desperate cry that sent tremors through her being. Mommy, could she unravel the Keeper's deception and claim her child, or was she destined to join the Forgotten in its depths forever? Something inside her whispered there was still a way out, but time was running out and the Keeper wasn't finished. Laura's heart raced faster than ever as she fell into the void, the suffocating darkness threatening to swallow her whole. "Jacob!" She shouted again, voice laced with desperation, but only silence replied. The shadows circled, tightening their grip, and she felt a swell of rage. Enough! The word exploded from her throat, igniting something deep within her. "You want to take him?" The Keeper's laughter rang out disjointed and chilling as it twisted shapes and shadows, a manifestation of her worst fears. With every ounce of strength, fueled by pure determination and overwhelming love, Laura pushed against the darkness. She recalled each precious moment with Jacob, the laughter, the hugs, the late-night stories. Those memories burned bright like a beacon amid the abyss. They mattered. They were real. She lunged toward the faintest flicker of light far ahead, her heart pounding. In that moment, the shadows recoiled, as if her fierce love had struck them. "You're not my fear. I won't let you control me anymore." Laura bellowed as she thrashed her way through the encroaching gloom. The light began to form shapes, figures, familiar and warm. They were her neighbors, her friends, everyone she'd long held close to her heart, and with them came memories of joy. They cheered her on, enveloping her in warmth and guiding her steps forward. Cool air rushed against her skin, a welcome contrast to the chill of darkness seeking to consume her. "Mommy!" Jacob's voice reached her again, clearer this time. Heart seizing, she pushed even harder, the flickering light illuminating the path ahead with an intensity that felt like salvation. She could see him, standing there, just out of reach, lost yet filled with hope. She could hear him calling to her, pleading, and it made her heart ache. "Jacob! I'm coming!" She screamed, tears streaming down her face. She felt invincible now, each step fueled by love and determination. She wouldn't lose him, not now, not ever. The Keeper's form lurked behind her, raging and furious, its shadows twisting like claws eager to drag her back into perpetual darkness. "Your love will only betray you." It hissed, but she dismissed it with a fierceness that felt natural, instinctual. "I know the truth," she replied, voice steady, filled with resolve. "Love is power. It holds you at bay." In that moment, Laura felt a surge of energy flow through her. It wasn't just love, it was courage, strength, and the bond of motherhood that transcended all despair. The warmth she radiated pushed back against the Keeper, illuminating the path to Jacob with brilliant light. With every step she took, the shadows thinned, revealing glimmers of her home, the living room, the laughter, the comfort. She could practically feel her family, light and laughter washing away the dark. Suddenly, she found herself face to face with Jacob. He was pale and trembling, but alive. Reaching out, their fingers intertwined, and that connection amplified her resolve. "We're together, Jacob. You're safe." She breathed, drawing closer, but as they embraced, the shadows yanked at her, furious that she had defied them. With one last effort, the Keeper unleashed a wave of darkness that crashed against them both. They stumbled under its weight, mired in cold despair. "Let go of him!" Laura screamed, clutching Jacob tighter. The Keeper twisted, adjusting its own attitude, shifting into their darkest fears the thought of losing Jacob forever. Its laughter echoed, mocking her pain. "You think you can escape?" The shadows surged, angry and hungry. But Laura stood her ground, holding Jacob close. "We're not afraid of you," she declared, light bursting from their joined hands, pushing back the darkness. The shadows screeched in horror as the light enveloped them, the boundaries between the two realms blurred. Light against dark, love against fear. The realm of shadows began to fracture, raining shards of darkness that dissolved into nothingness. It was a battle of wills, fueled by love and her unyielding determination. With one final push of energy, Laura and Jacob burst through the veil, emerging into the dim light of their reality. They tumbled onto the living room floor, the warmth of home wrapping around them like a beloved embrace. The shadows retreated, screaming in rage, vanishing into the corners of memory, banished by the love that triumphed over fear. "Mommy!" Jacob cried, relief flooding over him as he clung to her. "You found me." "I'll always find you, baby," Laura whispered, trembling with gratitude. She cradled him in her arms, their bond stronger than the darkness. As dawn seeped through the windows, bathing everything in golden light, Laura stood, holding Jacob tightly. She looked out toward the horizon, knowing their battle wasn't just for survival, it was a testament to love's unfailing strength. She would forever combat the shadows, not just for her children, but for every fear that ever threatened to steal joy, and as sunlight kissed the world awake, she breathed deeply, excited for the day, the warmth enveloping them like a protective promise. They were safe together. Now, here's the scoop. If you enjoy gripping stories like this, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let everyone know you're on board, and I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Tell me what you thought of Laura's journey. Finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, true fans deserve to rally together. Let us keep this exciting journey alive.